All right, let's be real for a second. Most movies from the 1960s look, well, old. You've got toy rockets on strings, painted backdrops pretending to be alien skies, and astronauts dangling around on wires that are way too obvious. But then there's 2001, A Space Odyssey, a movie from 1968 that somehow looks more realistic than half the billion-dollar blockbusters being made today. And here's the kicker. None of it was CGI. Actually, CGI wasn't even an option. Computers back then couldn't even run a video game, let alone simulate realistic space travel. So how did Stanley Kubrick make something so jaw-droppingly convincing that people thought NASA was jealous? The answer: sheer obsession with practical effects, engineering, and filmmaking wizardry. Kubrick didn't want to make a fun sci-fi adventure. He wanted to make the most realistic space movie ever filmed. And to do that, he turned filmmaking into a science experiment. Think about it. The massive rotating space stations, real sets. The eerie moon landscapes, handcrafted miniatures so detailed you'd swear they were NASA photographs. Astronauts floating in zero gravity, achieved through some of the craziest camera rigs ever built. Kubrick's goal was simple. Don't just show people the future. Make them believe they're already in it. And it worked. When astronauts actually landed on the moon a year later, people joked that Kubrick had already beaten them to it. Some conspiracy theorists even claimed Kubrick faked the moon landing because his effects looked too good. And hey, if you love these deep dives into the secrets of legendary movies, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next breakdown. So, why did Kubrick refuse to fake space with cheap tricks? And how did he create images that still feel futuristic 50 years later? Let's dive in. Stanley Kubrick wasn't just a filmmaker. He was a perfectionist with an obsession for realism. His philosophy during 2001 was simple: if something looked fake, it was gone. No compromises. Most sci-fi movies of the 50s and 60s relied on shortcuts. Cardboard sets, toy rockets, and matte paintings that looked fine until you blinked twice. Kubrick wanted none of it. He believed the human brain is incredibly good at spotting fakes, and once you see something that doesn't look real, the illusion breaks. You stop believing. So he set a rule: no stock footage, no rear projection, and no cheap tricks. If it couldn't be done for real, he would invent a new technique. And he did. Over and over. He hired aerospace engineers and NASA consultants to design ships that would look scientifically accurate. He worked with Arthur C. Clarke, one of the greatest sci-fi writers ever, to make sure the story matched real physics. Every single shot was carefully planned to feel believable. And here's the thing: Kubrick wasn't doing this for spectacle. He wasn't trying to wow people with flashy visuals. He wanted audiences to feel like they were actually in space. When you see a spacecraft drifting silently through the void, your brain says, yeah, that's how it really would look. That obsession with authenticity set 2001 apart. While other movies from the era aged into cheesy relics, Kubrick's film still looks futuristic. Because he wasn't making special effects, he was making reality captured on film. Let's rewind to the very beginning of the movie, The Dawn of Man. On paper, this could have been the cheesiest opening ever. Prehistoric ape men discovering tools. Easy to imagine some guy in a gorilla suit from a bad B movie. But Kubrick wasn't having that. He brought in Stuart Freeborn, the legendary makeup artist who later created Yoda and Chewbacca for Star Wars. Freeborn crafted full-body suits, detailed prosthetics, and even animatronic masks that allowed subtle expressions. Instead of looking like rubber monsters, the ape men felt alive. And those sweeping desert landscapes? They weren't filmed in Africa. They were shot on a soundstage in England, using a cutting-edge technique called front projection. Kubrick projected high-resolution photos of real African deserts onto a massive reflective screen behind the actors. The result was seamless. No obvious edges, no matte lines, just a realistic horizon stretching behind the actors. Audiences at the time were stunned. Some critics even assumed Kubrick had flown an entire crew to Africa. Nope. It was all practical trickery. Even today, most people watching have no idea the background was fake. That's how advanced Kubrick's methods were. So convincing that they're still fooling audiences over 50 years later. Now for one of Kubrick's wildest inventions, the rotating centrifuge set. Remember those scenes on the Discovery 1 spaceship where astronauts casually jog around the ship's interior and even upside down, without wires or tricks? No CGI, no digital doubles. That was a real working set. Kubrick had his team build a 12-meter-high, 30-ton rotating wheel that could spin actors and cameras together. Basically, they built a massive carnival ride and then turned it into a film set. When astronaut Frank Poole jogs in a circle around the ship, the entire set is physically rotating around him while the camera stays locked in place. It was insanely dangerous and insanely expensive. The set had to be perfectly balanced, or it could collapse under its own weight. Actors had to move in sync with the rotation, or they risked tripping and tumbling headfirst. The camera crew? They were strapped into chairs bolted to the spinning set, filming upside down while the world turned around them. But the result was worth it. When audiences saw it, they believed they were looking at real zero gravity. No wires, no fake floating, just a human body moving in ways that seemed impossible. That centrifuge sequence alone changed science fiction filmmaking forever. It proved you didn't need CGI to create the illusion of space travel. You just needed engineering, guts, and Kubrick's refusal to compromise. Next up, the spaceships. The Discovery 1, the space station, the moon shuttle. 2001 is packed with spacecraft that look eerily real. Kubrick's secret miniatures, but not the wobbly toy rockets you'd see in other films of the era. These were massive, hyper-detailed models, some over 50 feet long, with thousands of tiny details built in. Every panel, every antenna, every light had to feel functional. Instead of filming them with basic camera tricks, Kubrick used slit-scan photography and multiple long exposure passes. He filmed the same model over and over, changing the lighting each time, then combined the exposures. This created shadows, depth, and a sense of weight that models had never had before. The result? Ships that looked as real as NASA's own prototypes. In fact, rumor has it that NASA engineers walked out of screenings saying the designs looked as advanced as their own classified spacecraft. And of course, this fueled the infamous conspiracy theory that Kubrick faked the Apollo 11 moon landing a year later because his miniatures looked too good. While that's obviously not true, it shows how convincing his practical effects were. No strings, no wobbling, just the most realistic depiction of space ever filmed, using models you could hold in your hands. Now let's talk about the trippiest part of the movie, the Stargate sequence. Astronaut Dave Bowman gets sucked into a kaleidoscope of cosmic tunnels, light trails, and alien landscapes. Today, this would all be CGI shaders. But in 1968, Kubrick had to invent the effect from scratch. The technique was called slit-scan photography. A camera moved slowly toward a narrow slit in a black mask. Behind the slit were brightly colored patterns and artwork that shifted incrementally. With long exposures, the camera captured streaks of light that stretched into infinite tunnels. It was insanely time-consuming. Some shots required hours of exposure for a single frame. And if anything went wrong, the film jammed, the timing was off, or the pattern shifted too fast, the whole take was ruined. But the final result was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Audiences in 1968 thought it was either real NASA footage of deep space or some kind of hallucination experiment. College students literally dropped acid just to watch the sequence in theaters. And here's the crazy part. Even today, the Stargate sequence looks futuristic. It's still studied by filmmakers as a masterclass in analog visual effects. No CGI. Just cameras, artwork, and a director willing to spend months perfecting a single effect. Finally, the Monolith. Simple, mysterious, unforgettable. Kubrick could have used optical effects to make it glow or float. Instead, he went minimal. A giant slab of wood, painted black, sanded to perfection, standing there like it didn't belong. Its simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful. It's not a special effect you can dismiss. It's physically there, commanding the frame, forcing you to question its meaning, and sometimes, the most powerful practical effect is restraint. So why does 2001 A Space Odyssey still look better than many modern movies? Because physics don't age. When a real model spaceship drifts through space, your brain accepts it. When an actor actually jogs upside down in a rotating centrifuge, your senses know it's real. CGI might be faster, but it rarely feels tangible. Kubrick's obsession with doing everything physically gave 2001 a timeless quality. That's why decades later, audiences still marvel at how real it looks. At the end of the day, 2001: A Space Odyssey isn't just a movie. It's proof that practical filmmaking, when pushed to the limit, can create something timeless. Kubrick didn't just predict the future, he built it, piece by piece, in front of a camera. That's why 2001 still outshines modern CGI-heavy blockbusters. Because when you know what you're watching actually happened on set, the impact hits harder. And hey, if you want more breakdowns of how legendary films refuse to settle for CGI, make sure to subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. There are plenty more stories to tell, because in the end, the lesson is clear. When it comes to cinematic magic, sometimes reality beats CGI every single time.